Welcome to an enlightening podcast from IslamPodcasts.com.
The last 2 years have changed the world in ways we could have never imagined.
So we're 2 weeks into this peace deal. Is this a success or a failure for Israel?
For Israel, until now, it's a failure.
But Professor Jilani says there are deeper agendas at play that have been set in motion decades ago.
Israel was created as a means of sustaining the status quo after the First World War. Now, Israel knows that. It is an artificial invention by Europe and America. He told the people who were close to his airplane, his flight, this is not about Gaza. It's much bigger than Gaza. It's about the Middle East. So this is the paradigm that the US had worked on since 1950.
And they are about to change the whole Middle East.
Not only that, and this is very serious, and I would like almost everybody, especially in the Muslim world, to understand that once that happens, then every Muslim in the Muslim world will pay a price.
The time to understand them and act is now.
It's now been 2 weeks since the peace deal took place in Egypt. US President Donald Trump, he gathered all the regional leaders and he proclaimed to the world that he's finally brought to an end this 3,000-year-old struggle. However, 2 weeks on, the deal seems to be breaking down. Israel's killed over 80 people. What does this mean for the region? What does it mean for the peace deal? That's what we want to really look at today in this Narrative House podcast. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and a very warm welcome to the Narrative House podcast, where we look at the global issues that affect the global Ummah. So today I have a very esteemed guest who's actually going to explain to us what's going on in the region, what's going on in the world, and what it really means for us, and what are the trends really we should be following. My guest today, he's been here before. He's Dr. Muhammad Jilani, who is an author. He's a political analyst. He's a professor based in the US, and he has a forthcoming book on the Middle East paradigm, which I'm sure we're going to go through today as well. So Dr. Muhammad Jilani, assalamu alaikum, and a very warm welcome to the Narrative House podcast.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you for having me, and thanks for your esteemed audience. Inshallah, we'll have a very productive dialogue.
Definitely. So, as I said in my introduction, we're just going past 2 weeks now since that peace deal, which seems to be falling apart. I suppose the question many people have is, why now? How did we get a peace deal now? And is the peace deal breaking apart? Is it falling apart?
Well, in a nutshell, if this issue was left to the Israelis, the peace will not hold, and the ceasefire will not hold. It is not holding. And in fact, already President Trump has dispatched his Vice President Vance and the envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and Kushner. Three of them, they went to meet with Netanyahu, and actually is just to tell him right in the eye, to look into him, don't fool around with this ceasefire. This is the thing that the US had waited a long time for it. According to Trump, before he moved from Tel Aviv to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, he told the people, the press who were close to his airplane, his flight, this is not about Gaza. It's much bigger than Gaza. It's about the Middle East. So this is the paradigm that the US had worked on since 1950, since the Truman Doctrine, to build a Middle East that's completely geopolitically stable, completely under the hegemony of the United States, completely firm, so that it will never generate a new ideological system that could ever challenge the US in the area or the world at large, which I mean by that, the rise of Islam again. So it's their chance to finalize that whole plan. The only obstacle, as I concluded in the book that's coming up, the only final obstacle to this plan It's not Egypt, it's not Iran, it's not Turkey, it's not Syria, it's not Jordan, it's not the Gulf states, it's not Pakistan, not Indonesia, none of these states, if I can call them states. The only obstacle continues to be Israel for many reasons. There are three reasons for Israel to oppose any peace plan until they achieve their three main issues. Number one, the demography. The demography of the state of Israel must be a Jewish demography, meaning that Palestinians should not live in Israel. I'm talking about Palestinians not only in the West Bank or in Gaza, but inside what is called Israel today. So, and that's called a Jewish state. And that's what Trump accepts and agrees to. That's what Biden agrees to. That's what they want. How they could do it is a different story. The second one is the borders. Israel today does not accept its current borders, not in any way. No matter how much ceasefire they will have, no matter how much they pressure peace upon them, they will never accept this current border. They have to expand. And that's what Trump alluded to when he said, "This I realize that Israel is that thin, so it must have some space to grow in." And the third one, which is very, very critical also, it's the military superiority. Israel does not want to see any other military power in the area that can match what they have, especially in the nuclear arena. That's why they wanted to very badly to destroy Iranian nuclear capabilities, and that's why the United States actually interfered right at the beginning of the Israeli attack. They made a couple of hours attack, and they declared that we have destroyed, dismantled all the Iranian nuclear capabilities, which turned out to be not true. Turned out to be fake. In fact, this has already been public. Nobody can deny that. So this is what's going on. So today, that peace thing that Trump had is short-lived. It's not going to be to endure until and unless they enable the Jewish state in Palestine to achieve their three objectives. Otherwise, the alternative, which always they threaten, the Israelis threaten, they say this is existential, meaning if you don't allow us to do that, we will not exist. And if we will not exist, then your old strategy from the time of Balfour Declaration to create a Jewish state, to be like a throne in the heart of the Muslim world, especially in the Middle East, that will no longer be there and will not play that role. That's what they mean when they continue to say, it's existential. Our existence is necessary for you, so you better give us whatever we need. That's in a nutshell.
So why did Hamas agree to the deal now?
Well, look, Hamas is in a very delicate position. After all, Hamas was supported militarily and financially by for the time since it has officially existed since the end of 80s by external powers, including Iran for armament, including Turkey for finances, including Qatar for facilitating the transfer of money and goods, etc. So Hamas lives like an organ that continues, that had been fed or had been on life-sustaining devices in a hospital, which are all external. So today Iran stepped aside because it wants to have a seat in the Middle East Council that's coming up, and Iran actually abandoned its own baby Hezbollah in Lebanon. So it did abandon Hamas. Qatar and the Gulf states and the Arab states, all of them, they would not supply Hamas, not even with a single spoon of milk for their children until and unless they accept a ceasefire. So they were put in a situation where at least they allowed this to appear as if it is a fair negotiation rather than a defeat, which means eventually you can become a political party, you can become part of the Palestinian Authority or Palestinian state, wherever that could be, but not as a militant group. Militancy can belong only to a state, but you are not state now. So Hamas were pushed to the corner after 2 years of struggle, standing up, fighting by all their means, under all the pressure coming from the world, from like the neighbors of Palestine, Jordan, Egypt, and Syria and Lebanon have closed all the borders. They will not allow, even if a single person moves across the borders, he will be shot by his own army rather than by the Israelis. So what they probably have relied on and or thought, which was called upon by Abu Ubaidah several times, please help, please move your armies, please do allow the people to take action, for no avail. So Hamas is in a very delicate position. I don't think they could have accepted anything other than that. They could not have provided their conditions. Now, the only thing they wanted is the guarantees from the United States that Israel will pull out of Gaza, leaving in Gaza some self-determination or self-rule by some Palestinian or Arab authority. And that is not going to happen.
So it seems as though the second part of this peace deal was that Hamas disarms. Do you think that will happen? Do you think Hamas will disarm, or will it be forced to disarm?
Either way, it's going to be disarmed, either by will or by force. And I think they would prefer to do it by will, especially if an authority, a council is established for running Gaza from the Arab countries, supported and endorsed by the United States as per Hamas ideas. I'm not speaking my ideas, their ideas is that if this is guaranteed by the US and some Arab entity, including Palestinians, they will take the arms. We are willing to provide our arms too. And of course, there are some details there, differentiating between personal guns, or the ones which are rocket launchers, and the heavier ones. The heavier ones we will handle. Our personal guns, we will keep them to protect our persons or individuals. So every individual can protect himself. So let's see how that will go. But at the end of the day, I think from the Hamas perspective, it has always been the case. Stop the war, has complete ceasefire, and we will stop the fight, and we will give you the hostages. Today, it's not only the hostages, it's also our weapons.
So what is the future of a Palestinian state? Is this it?
Well, very good question, brother. The Europeans, they have this type of show, I would say, in the United Nations, that we recognize Palestinian state without ever stating where that Palestinian state is. Now, of course, Britain always, which is very tricky country, they will say, based on Resolution 242, which was after 1967 war, but that resolution is very vague, because that resolution stated that Israel must withdraw from occupied Arab lands. And occupied Arab lands does not have that the occupied lands, which means any. Now, what the Israelis maintain is that in 1978, Camp David Accord, we withdrew from Sinai. And Sinai was part of the occupied Arab lands in 1967. So we did pull out our forces from these occupied lands, from part of the occupied lands. So the question remains, then, would there be a Palestinian state in Gaza? The answer, no. That will not happen. That could be self-determination for the remaining people of Gaza, whoever remains. Could it be in the West Bank? No, Israel has annexed more than 82% of the West Bank, and now it is going to annex the rest based on the Knesset order. Then the only thing that is left viable is what Israel calls part of Greater Palestine or Greater Israel now is East Jordan. That's where Jordan is. And there is a big premise that the Palestinian state will be in connection with Jordan that has been established in the past by both King Abdullah and his father, King Hussein. King Hussein was talking about a united Arab kingdom instead of the Jordanian Hashemite kingdom to be united, where it will unite both nations, Jordanians and Palestinians, without defining where the space is, the borders. But in my opinion, today, the only viable potential for a Palestinian state is to be in connection with the current Jordan. There will be no other option, and there are lots of signs for that. By the way, in the recent history of development of Palestinians, some issues related to Jordan. Jordan currently has more than 50% population Palestinians. Many of them, they hold what is called a temporary social security number. It's social security number with certain color. I think it's a green color, meaning that this belong to Palestinians. Now that, of course, does not mean that they will go back to old Palestine. All that it means is that once the new state is formed, then we will know who is from Palestinian origin, who is from Jordanian. So when we will have a parliament like that one in Iraq, which is composed of two sub-nations, divided by according to the quota, how many members Palestinians, how many members Jordanians, it will be based on these green type lines differentiators. So that has already been planned. So it's not something new. And I would be surprised if the Palestinian state will ever emerge in the West Bank or Gaza. Not that it should not happen, but that the current way things are going does not seem to happen.
So we're 2 weeks into this peace deal. Is this a success or a failure for Israel?
For Israel, until now, it's a failure. Until now, it's a failure, and they will try to sabotage it by all means. That's what happened in the last few days with their attacks on Khan Yunis and Rafah. And recently also they did attack some on the east part of Gaza City, claiming that some people who crossed the yellow line, they were armed from Hamas without any, it doesn't matter whether it's correct or not, but it is as step-by-step violations that will eventually grow into dismantlement of the peace. And again, that's why Trump dispatched his most senior advisors, including his vice president, because they know it's serious. The Israelis, they don't want that. And I think you mentioned something about Qatar. Actually, when Israel attacked Qatar, the Arab Nations Summit, OIC, which took place a few days later, they mentioned that the attack was aimed at the negotiation at the peace process. Osama Hamdan, a high dignitary from the political leadership of Hamas, he said explicitly the attack in Qatar was actually did not target our persons or personnel who were negotiating. It was an attack on the potential ceasefire and peace. That was clear at that time. And today it has become, I think the other day, I was listening to Witkov together with Kushner. Witkov, he mentioned explicitly that the attack on Qatar was an attempt to sabotage the peace negotiations, which we had to reinforce in Sharm el-Sheikh. So Israel does not want to see any peace in the area, because that is counterproductive to their goals and ambitions. They are afraid that if they would accept a peace, an everlasting peace today, then the next step will be the defining of a Palestinian state. And since they are still West Bank officially not annexed, and Gaza is officially not annexed, then a Palestinian state could be in this place. And to them, this is absolutely unacceptable. By Likud, by the labor, by all Israeli factions, this is absolutely unacceptable. It's not only Netanyahu.
Mhm. So you mentioned Qatar. Did Israel do this despite the US, or did they do this where America accepted this was going to happen? I mean, it's been a month now. How do you see things now?
Well, no matter what type of news are being announced, Israel did it despite whether the Americans knew about it or did not know. They wanted to sabotage that, and they did. And they mentioned that we informed the Americans. Trump said, "I got the news from the leaders of my army, the generals of the army. They told me about it." There is lots of confusion about that, but I don't deny, or I'm not in a position to say Israelis did not inform the US. Probably they did, but that's not to take permission. Or maybe they ask permission and they do it before the permission or the rejection comes in. So Israelis don't wait for the US, and they know Israel, America can pressure them, but they cannot break their bond. And that is what the Israelis rely on. No matter what they do, no matter how much they frustrate America or Britain or France, these guys at the end of the day, they say, well, we created Israel because we had an objective. And that objective, which Britain formulated 100 years ago, or more than 100 years ago, through the Balfour Declaration, which was followed and supported by the League of Nations by giving Britain a mandate over Palestine, with the main objective to enable migration of the Jews to Palestine to create a homeland and a state for them. So this was a very decisive strategy at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, at the time when Britain and Europe were able to dismantle the Ottoman state and then the Khilafah at that time. So Israel was created as a means of sustaining the status quo after the First World War. Now Israel knows that, and the Jews know that, and they know that they did not migrate to Palestine by will. They were forced to migrate in order to build that state. So now the Israelis, they will tell the Europeans, look, if you want us to leave, we will leave. We have nothing to do in this area. We can live much better in Australia, in Canada, in Britain, in America. We would be absolutely happy, and we know how to make money. So they know this weak spot in the Euro-American political concept. They know it very well, and they rely on that. So they know that no matter how much they can do, no one can pressure them to the point where they can break their bonds. And in fact, that's what I heard in the news. Trump, in his press conference, responding to one question, that Witkoff and Vance, they told Netanyahu that they can use power in Gaza, they can do whatever operations, but they cannot break the ceasefire. Look, this is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, what does it mean? Go and shoot someone, but ceasefire is not broken. What do you call this fire? This is like a kid game or what? So that's what I mean by the Americans cannot pressure Israel to the point where they can force them to stop doing an act.
Mhm. So I wanted to move on really to talk about now the US policy going forward. And this might be a good time for you to introduce us to your forthcoming book, The New Middle East Paradigm. Maybe explain to us the context you wrote it in, and then what does it tell us about the direction things are going in the region and US policy?
Okay. Well, look, if you trace the American policy well, you will find that they are following a map that was drawn right after the Second World War for the Middle East. And there are, of course, some road maps for other regions, but we are concerned today with the Middle East. In that, the first doctrine, which was put forward by Truman, called the Truman Doctrine, which was authored and organized by his Secretary of State, Dean Acheson, where briefly, in a brief, they realized that the Middle East had been a colony for Britain and France. And now, after the Second World War, these colonies cannot hold because the colonialists are not in the same position and capabilities to do that. So America has to step in and take over. And that's in a nutshell, America wanted to replace the old colonialism with a new type of hegemony, their hegemony. They don't want to appear as colonialist. It's not colonialism, but it is rule through proxy, like agents, military coups, governments that are loyal, or they can buy loyalties one way or another. So, and they started by Egypt. So they did actually fulfill the plan. They started with Egypt using the free officers, and Miles Copeland wrote a whole book on the issue, how they were able to recruit or to help the free officers to take over the country and actually replace Britain in Egypt. When Britain wanted to come back based on the Suez Canal nationalization, America used its own force with the help of the Soviet Union. They kicked Britain, France, and Israel from the Suez, and then Britain was out for good. Next in line, America had looked at Iran, because these were the two biggest countries and the two biggest bases, if you will, for the old colonialism. So they went to Iran, starting from 1953, orchestrating a coup against Mossadegh, who evicted the Shah in exchange of half or 50% of the British share in the Anglo-Iranian oil company. But they used that footstep, and eventually also they used the potential threat of the Soviet Union at the time to Iran. So they sold lots of advanced military to the Iranians, and then they supplied that with trainers. There were about 10,000 US trainers, military trainers. Of course, the trainers means this is intelligence. These are not trainers. By the time 1979 revolution of Khomeini took place, those people inside Iran, they were able to impact the Iranian army to let the Shah go and let the Khomeini rise. And this is, again, it's well documented in my book by all types of documents and historical evidence. So they got Iran, then they targeted Iraq. So now they have Egypt, they have Iran. Now because what's the Middle East? Middle East, eventually, those countries which, especially not in North Africa, partially North Africa, Egypt and Sudan, but in this area, what people refer to Middle East. So you have Egypt, Iran, and Iraq is the next step. So United States had its plan to take over Iraq, and they found the first initiative that lights up the fire, if you will, when Saddam Hussein entered Kuwait. And of course, we know the news that April Gillespie, when she met with Saddam, her talks to Saddam was, according to State Department officials, was vague enough for Saddam to understand that it's okay to enter Kuwait and take over. This is not of any interest to the United States. Of course, turned out to be a trap. So once they trapped that, From 1991 until 2003, they found the opportunity, they occupied Iraq by force. So now they have Iraq. Saudi Arabia had always been fluctuating based on who runs the country. So the first time America got hold of royalty in Saudi Arabia during King Fahd. But then when he was replaced by Abdullah, things went a bit south, especially when Abdullah went to London and he bought with almost 11 billion pounds, some of the jet fighters made by Britain. And that was a blow to the U.S. existence in Saudi Arabia. But then they were able to resume that through King Fahd and MBS especially, who loves the time he takes a photo with Trump. And they were willing to handle him from 1 trillion to 4 trillions without blinking an eye. So they got Saudi Arabia. Now Turkey, of course, because of NATO, so Turkey is NATO, so they can use Turkey all the time. Plus, the government of Erdogan has sided with the U.S. foreign policy in almost every case, whether it's Azerbaijan, whether it's Syria, whether it's even the Gulf states, or even now they are doing that in Africa. They are using Turkey in Africa. So Turkey is already lined up. Syria was an obstacle for a while, especially according to Kissinger, which is very interesting. And this, people will find it in the book documented. Kissinger is reported to say that Hafez al-Assad is a very nice person to talk to. I spoke with Hafez al-Assad 6.5 hours continuously. We were sitting, and Hafez al-Assad was providing those dirty jokes that you cannot hold yourself but to laugh heavily on them, on these jokes. So he's praising. But the problem is not Hafez al-Assad, it's not the regime, it's the people of Syria, the public opinion. So now, after 13 years of revolution, where Bashar plus Russia plus Iran plus Hezbollah all crushed the inner zeal of the people. The people now, they don't have that fire inside to stand up for anything. There is no way people in the Muslim world never assumed or thought that the people would allow Ahmed al-Shara to go and visit Moscow, the one that crushed the Syrians in daylight. But they did. And they are applauding him. They are not applauding him because they love to, but because they don't have that fire inside their hearts anymore. So Syria is crushed. We have the new Syria. So United States now already built its paradigm. Britain is out, all except in the Gulf states and in Jordan. But to compensate for that, America established their military bases in Qatar, in Emirat, in Kuwait, and in Jordan. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of soldiers, airplanes, weaponaries, everything. So they are under complete occupation. So the complete Middle East paradigm is done minus Israel. That's the only thing, minus Israel. So that's why Trump is so keen about making this final touch to subjugate Israel, to let it go with his plan, to promise them that he will allow them to expand, but at least go along with our plan. So Israel is the last obstacle until now. It's not the public opinion in Syria or in the Muslim countries. It's not the leaders in the Arab states. All of them are in line. And crushing the people inside these Arab countries had been going on for a long time, in Jordan, in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, and all these places. So people don't have a say until and unless, of course, there could be a change. We will never lose hope with that. And especially when, as Muslims, we believe there is yet one more force above us and above America, which is Allah Azza wa Jal. So we believe in that. So we know that things can change. But on a materialistic basis, pure, America has done, I think, more than 90% of their plan. The remaining 10% is Israel. But this peace has a weight almost equal to the 90%. It's really it's big, and that's an obstacle. We'll see how Trump is going to deal with that.
So it seems what Israel wants is not necessarily against this American plan. What Israel wants is, let us take more land, let us secure our security, and then, yeah, we're with you. Because obviously the American plan includes Israel at the middle of it.
Sure. Actually, America, I think after the 7th of October 2023, I would bet that they told the Israelis, this is your chance. Expand your territory, kick out as many Palestinians as possible, but pay your own price. Because until now, you have not paid a penny or a drop of blood. In 1948, Britain told all the Arab armies get out, and they did. 1967, the armies of Abdel Nasser and Hafez al-Assad and Jordan, they were told leave, and they left. 1967. 1973, it was very temporary war. It did not cost the Israelis a lot. So what America is saying today in loud voice to the Israelis, do it, but do it with your own blood. And that's what Netanyahu said at the very beginning of the war. This war could cost us more than 10,000 casualties, at least. So they know now that they have to pay the price because, as they say, it's existential. It's be or not to be. So America doesn't mind. The only problem America has, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but the way when I look at the details, I think it makes sense. America does not want Israel to destroy the Iranian nuclear capabilities. America would like to see the Middle East internally stable. Look at the situation of India and Pakistan. When India was able to get the nuclear power through who helped them, I think Russia at that time. So the America immediately enabled Pakistan to become a nuclear power in a time, the shortest time any country ever got the nuclear capabilities was Pakistan. And I know as facts, I know people who were allowed to leave United States and Europe. These are nuclear scientists, Pakistanis. In regular cases, this is not allowed. That's a big issue. But in other words, for regional stability, especially when it comes to nuclear, United States does not want any country in a certain region to be superior to others. Otherwise, that will be a cause of instability at any point of time. So that, I think, probably the only remaining puzzle, part of the piece of the puzzle between America and Israel. Israel needs to be convinced that Iran will recognize Israel. Iran will have diplomatic relations publicly, not under the table. So they become states that eventually both cooperate in maintaining peace in the Middle East, but not to challenge one another. At least that needs to happen for Israel to accept. Otherwise, Israel prefers the dismantling of the Iranian nuclear capabilities, which until today they have not done so. And in my opinion, which I think there is evidence for that, 2018, when Trump stopped working by the nuclear agreement, which was signed in 2015, which used to be called 5+1, he annihilated that agreement. It enabled Iran to go unchecked. Use whatever accelerators you have to enrich whatever you can do within this time. Until today, that agreement, there is no agreement. No one can go into Iran and inspect what they have, what they have not. So since 2018 until now, it has been 7 years. 7 years without any regulations, without any check. That's more than enough to do to increase their level of nuclearity. And that is the last piece of the puzzle. America does not oppose the expansion of Israel, the eviction of Palestinians. Trump suggested that a million times about the people in Gaza. Now, of course, people inside Palestine. Once, and that's my thing is very important for people to understand, Palestinian state will be created. There is no peace in the Middle East, no stability, if the issue of Palestinians continue to be issues of refugees. Refugees must end status of refugee, otherwise it will be always on the table of discussion. And there are about total 15 million people, Palestinians. Only 1/3 of them are in Palestine, Gaza, and the inside what's called Palestine, and the rest are refugees with cards. Everybody has a card. They pass it from generation to generation that I am a refugee. So that needs to be solved. So once that's solved, once there is a Palestinian state officially recognized by United Nations, as today we see, and there is a border for it, let's call it in Jordan, then from this time on, we have Palestinians who live in the west part of the river. These people are living in Israel. And this is Israel by the recognition of Palestinian state. The Palestinian state will say this is Israel. It's no longer called Palestine. But where is Palestine? Palestine is in this little entity, which is today, I assume it's Jordan, could be somewhere else, but let's say Jordan, for example. Then now you have Palestine, and then you have Palestinians. Palestinians living inside Israel, and they are not welcome there, absolutely. Then naturally, you must go back to your state. Not only that, and this is very serious, and I would like almost everybody, especially in the Muslim world, to understand that once that happens, then every Muslim in the Muslim world will pay a price for occupying what's called Israel. So in the last 100 years, you guys were living in Israel. You were not living in Palestine, and you were leasing your lands. You are making money out of our lands. You are farming olives and selling olive oil all over the world. These are billions or trillions of dollars. You have to pay for that. The same way they made the Germans pay until today for some mistake that they claim Hitler made it. Tomorrow, if that happens, if they build a Palestinian state and they evac Palestinians to that state, and they will, once they have it, then the next step, they will take us all to the court of law. And this court of law, which will never do anything for us, even they can't pass laws, but now they will make it enforceable according to the Security Council, to United Nations, to the guarantors of peace. Okay, now this is Palestine. We gave you the land. It should be part of greater Israel, but God bless you, take it, make Palestinian state there. Now, what the heck were you doing in our lands? So we have to pay the price. And we'll continue paying maybe for 100 years, hundreds of billions of dollars. That's an irony that many people do not even think of it. But look, you are talking about Israel, about the Jewish people who argued with Allah Azza wa Jal, who argued with Musa alayhi salam, and who surpassed or overcame all of these rules and regulations that came from Allah, from God, from the God they worship in the places near Aqsa. The same God, they argued with him on everything that they want their rights, as if Allah Azza wa Jal denies them their rights.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about Israel's credibility now. The beginning of October, 7th of October, was the 2-year anniversary. And, probably one of the most critical things after 2 years is Israel's credibility, even in the West, is rock bottom. We're seeing many Jews come out against Israel. Israel cannot get rid of this genocide label. So these people who were victims of the genocide are now not just being accused, technically, they've actually been charged with genocide from international institutes. You're from the US, and even the US, it seems now, the unthinkable is happening. The opinion, especially amongst the youth, is changing regarding Israel. So I suppose my question is, where do you see Israel's credibility? It seems Israel's actually even struggling when they go on the media and even on social media to actually justify what they're doing.
Oh, let me tell you something and tell our audience something. Israel as a country or Jewish as a nation never had any credibility in the West before. Never. I lived in the Soviet Union for a while. In the Soviet Union, if you make a mistake, by mistake, you are talking to an old lady, they call her babushka, for example. Just dialogue, and then you happen to say, by the way, are you a Jew? In Russian called Yevreya. You might be hit right in the face. And I mean that, and I have testimonies for that. You might be hit by the face for saying that, because that's an insult to a Russian. In America, until today, that's not yesterday, until today, if somebody wants, if you are bargaining with someone and you are a good bargainer, let's say you want to buy a car from a dealer and the car costs, he wants to sell it, it's a used car for $10,000. You tell him, no, give me a break. And then he asks you, okay, give me your offer. And you go and you say, you know what, I will give him the lowest possible. Give it to me for $3,000. You know what his response is? He will say, don't Jew me. Don't Jew me. Until today, that's not yesterday. And that is deeply engraved. Until the 60s, in some places in the South, where I visited some places in Mississippi and in some other places, and continued in some small museums next to the University of Mississippi in Oxford. There is an Oxford in Mississippi, by the way, and there is a university there that's for the British to realize they are not the only Oxford guys. There is an Oxford in Mississippi, United States, very high level university, and they used to call it Ole Miss until today. Ole Miss is an expression by blacks, so it's a symbol of racism. Now, next on one of the streets of next to the university, where lots of shops, there is a small, something looks like a museum. It's a shop that has all types artifacts from the racial era, racism before the so-called the freedom movements or the Martin Luther King and others. In those, you will find some boards which says, no black or Jew are welcome in my restaurant. Black. This is in the 60s. That's not back in the 19th century. Okay. Now, in order for the West to facilitate the creation of Israel, to make it feasible and acceptable, they started encouraging and supporting movements inside the Western world, whether it's Europe or America, in order to get some type of sympathy to the Jews, so that they can leave to Palestine, to the extent that it took a Holocaust, and then based on that they created what's called anti-Semitism. So now it became a crime to say any word that can be labeled as hatred to the Jews. So hatred to the Jews, or at least treating them just like any people inside any country, because in France it's very easy to come to some people and say, get lost, or hell with you, or go to wherever, or in Britain, or in UK, or in America, or in Germany. Very normal to any group of people, whether they are, like in America, whether they are immigrants from Britain or France or Italy or the Middle East or wherever. It's not a problem, it's not a crime to tell them, go back home, or you are barbarian Arab. It's not a crime. Now they made it a crime to make any word that has the connotation Jew, which has a negative sentiment. It's a crime that you can lose money, you can go to jail, so that it is artificially created. Now, the war, and that's what happened in Gaza, the magnificence of the war, the the type of images that the people have seen, the people stepped over the laws and the regulations that stop them from expressing their opinions. So to them, it was easy to say it's genocide now, because they thought within this realm of war, now we can express our feelings. So it's not new. It is revoking what these nations had always held. Now, I want to add one more thing. AIPAC, which is the instrument that Israel uses in the United States to trace everyone who criticized Judaism or Jewish or Israel, now, or even Zionism. Although everybody knows Zionism is not Judaism. When someone says Zionism is a racist concept, they will say you are anti-Jewish, you are anti-Jewish, you are anti-Semitic, and you can go to jail for that. But there are lawyers who go in front of court, they want to prove that Zionism is something different. No way to pass. You cannot do that. Why? AIPAC was given a power after 1967 in particular. Note the date. Before 1967, AIPAC was just like any political action committee. It did not have more power than the Rifle Association Political Action Committee or the Women Right Political Action Committee. Any political action committee can lobby, but they did not have more rights. Now, when America found out that Israel, we don't have any leverage over Israel, so they promoted AIPAC and they gave it some more power. One of the most important powers which were passed through the Congress to enable AIPAC to become like a big octopus in the area was every single dollar that AIPAC collects from the Jewish people or from any person and pays to Israel is tax deductible. In America, by law, if I donate money from my taxes to Jordan or even to an educational institution in Jordan or to a charity in Jordan, that's not tax deductible. That's if it's allowed in the first place. Actually, when I used to work for Motorola, we were told if you want to donate to your country, let's say to Jordan, then if you do it through some Motorola organization, this is okay. It can be done. And they allowed us to go to a certain organization or within the corporate, but that's not tax deductible. But if this was going to Israel, it's tax deductible. Now, of course, that's a big impact and big jump and big help to them. So AIPAC, until even then, AIPAC was just like any other organization. If you want to support a congressman, you cannot pay more than $5,000. That's it. 5,000 even to the president. So now what did they do for them? They said, okay, AIPAC now, if you are in Chicago, you can make 500 organizations named under AIPAC 1, AIPAC 2, AIPAC 500. Each one donates $5,000. That's $1.5 million already. No other committee or political action committee has that privilege. But this was done after 1967. By 1974, AIPAC had become an octopus by design. So today, when the people coming up and like flurry about it, they are actually expressing their generation after generation after generation of suppressed emotions towards this entity. They just found the time slot to express, damn it, these people are so criminal. They are kill children in cold blood. They starve people to death. They just mention what they have thought or felt about hundreds of years ago. And now they could not express that. And of course, now Trump, in a rhetoric manner, he wants to as they say, to hold people responsible for what they have done during the last 2 years. And he did, actually, by the way. he cut the funds for universities,
Yeah.
research funds. I was supposed to work in a university institute, research institute, starting this past September. I already had a deal because it had lots of funds. When I went middle of September from Jordan to the US, went back to the institute, said, well, Dr. Malkawi, they call me Malkawi, Dr. Malkawi, we are sorry. Our funds were cut to zero. We did not receive any penny. Why? Because this university students came out in demonstrations in this university, from this university. So Trump is trying to cool things down with Israel until he can manage his policies.
Yes, I think we're seeing similar. I think now it's clear the TikTok ban has
Yeah.
nothing to do with China and national security. It's really all about Israel. But this is damaging. You know, it's like they are slaughtering their own sacred cows to defend Israel. So in the long run, you know, this can't be good for America or Israel.
Well, as I said, I mean, America slaughtered its own cows, sheep, everything to make Israel look great, and the Jews like sacred people that you cannot done them. They spent lots of money for that. They lost money for that, a lot. But now to reverse it one time, it seemed possible, but because the mission is not accomplished yet, so now Trump had no other choice but to put a lid on that for some time. But it just proves that under the surface there is a big waves working out in beneath that surface against the state of Israel and the way what they are doing. So, and that's a fact. This is the reality of Europe and America. And anyone who thinks that Europe and America are the nations, the people, are in complete support of the Israel or the Jewish state or whatever they do is absolutely mistaken. It is an artificial invention by Europe and America to make sure that these people called the Jewish nation remains in that place which does not belong to them. And they live in a sea, in a big ocean of antagonistic, not antagonistic people. It's by force they are imposing their presence. No nation will accept that. Absolutely. I mean, talk to anyone, come to any isolated group in India or isolated group in Guatemala, oppressed for any reason. Say, you know what? I have a land for you. I will create a state for you in southern Ghana. They'll say, are you crazy? These people will eat us alive. Now, that's how the Jewish people were forced to leave Europe and America because of the all discrimination against them, because the Europeans did not want these people to be there, so they created a state for them, and they are supporting it. They have to support it. They must support it, and that's why I mentioned also earlier, I think in another podcast, 7th of October, within the first week, the number of people who were ready to flee, they were in tens of thousands. And when the American fleet went to the shore of the Israeli shore, was not to support Israel war, was to prevent the flee of people because they were running out in ships and in boats because planes were not flying. People, they would not stay in that place until and unless they know that someone is going to protect them.
I will remind you all that you can find Narrative House on all the major social media platforms where you can like, subscribe, and share. And by doing so, you will never miss a thing. And it also helps us with the algorithm. If you want to contribute and take part, you can do so via PayPal as well. In your book, Doctor, you talk about 4+2, or I think 4+1. About
1.0.
1.0
or 1+0.
1.0. So explain that to us, because that's quite a key concept in your book.
Okay. Now, this is the key concept. Actually, the name of the book is like this: The New Middle East Paradigm, 4+2 or 1+0. 4+2, that's Americans' vision. Americans' vision after it can stabilize the Middle East, resolve all the puzzles, including the puzzle of Israel, and making sure that it is the only major player in the area. Now it wants to keep it stable as much as possible. That's why what they call geopolitical stability. And they have different theories about that. Whether it's going to be through military bases like the ones in Japan or in Germany, that they will have it for 100 years or so, whether it will be by having one major state to run the show on behalf of the United States. Eventually, it culminated into a report which Brookings Institute published. They call it the 4+2, the 4 countries from in the Middle East, which each and every one of them has a stake in it. And they argued that the states are 4: Iran, Turkey, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. But these guys, they need a guarantor on top, like an umbrella. And the suggestion is Russia and the United States. So in case these 4 countries found it difficult, or there is an obstacle which they cannot resolve, then who's going to support to come to the aid? United States and Russia. But United States and Russia remain silent guarantors until and unless there is a need. So the 4, Iran, now they look at Iran because it was never part of the Middle East. It was never part of any region. Iran had always been throughout the history, except for the short period of times when it was part of the bigger Islamic state. And when it fled, it remains Iran. During the Cold War, it was Iran. After the Cold War is over, when the Soviet Union disappeared, continued to be Iran. So Iran has no place to be in. So America wanted to include it in the Middle East. Because if it's not, then it will look at it as a region on its own, which is very difficult for a superpower. So Iran must be included. And Iran itself, there is one element in the objective of the new paradigm, which is the prevention of the rise of a new ideological state, which is Islam or the Islamic State. Iran has a big stake in that. Iran would be absolutely opposed to the rise of a Sunni Khilafah state, because that will definitely pose a serious challenge to the so-called Islamization or Islamic vision or Islamic view or shape that Iran proposes. So Iran would fit. Turkey would fit. It's a big country. It's a NATO. It already has big force, big power, which it can utilize. And economically, it can provide stability, economic stability to the Middle East. And from the ideological perspective, Turkey would never like to see the rise of a Khilafah, because that would immediately point a finger at them. You guys lost our biggest power and you killed our lion. And so Turkey would be under the spot. So it's in their interest, again, to stand up for any change in the Middle East, new Middle East paradigm. Now, Israel, of course, without any say, Israel is ready to hit anyone, beat anyone, fight anyone. It doesn't matter, for the sake of its alliances with America or with the West. Now, Saudi Arabia is interesting. What I am talking about was actually discussed in a big conference with about 30 people by Brookings Institute for a few days. They discussed why Iran, why Saudi Arabia, why not Egypt, why not Qatar or Jordan or Syria or Iraq. They discussed all of these issues. So, but the conclusions, which I am putting in brief, Saudi Arabia has sold a vision of Islam, which is absolutely it's going to be scrutinized and will be defeated by the rise of a new Islamic version, because Saudis have always said this is myth. Islamic State. Every state we have are Islamic. We are Islamic. Even we, the Saudis, who are the most corrupt people in the world, we are Islamic State, and you have to obey us. And they had a big consortium of alims, sheikhs, etc. So the rise of a new ideological state is counterproductive to the Saudis. And since the Saudis have the finance capabilities, so let them be part of the consortium. So that's how they picked the four, because each and every one of them can serve the interest of a stable Middle East, geopolitical stable from this perspective. Because whatever today, the geopolitics of today had been opposed, or the obstacle to them was the old colonialism, Britain, France, because they don't want to give up easily. Now, once this is gone, then where is going to be the threat from inside? So now what in the book says, okay, so there is a competition now. A competition, a stability. Everybody wants the stability. A stability based on the ideology that people believe in, which is Islam, or a stability based on what America wants. America wants to build the stability using 4 states plus 2. 4 powerful states in the Middle East plus 2 the most powerful countries in the world. Whereas the other paradigm is the stability can be maintained by 1 state plus 0. Only one, because it depends on the emotions and beliefs and ideas and the thoughts and aspirations of the people themselves, which is Islam. So with Islam, if you can build the Islamic State, you don't need any other 2. It can't be 1 plus 1 or 1 plus 2. It's 1 plus 0. So these are the 2 paradigms which are in competition. Now the irony, some people they say, well, brother, about Islamic State, this has been going on for a long time. It has not materialized yet. And this is the interesting thing. That okay, let's look at the other model. The 4 plus 2 model started in 1950. And it's equipped with the most powerful superpower in the world, United States, equipped with the nuclears, with agents. It has the CIA, it has intelligence, it has all the capabilities. Until today, they have not accomplished that. So if you look at it from pure materialistic perspective, we are not far behind. Except that, on top of that, our paradigm, the 1 plus 0, is that I'm saying 0 from pure materialistic world, but it's 1 in addition to the power of Allah. And that is what people don't understand. But I found this answer. Look, I have not spent yet the time that America had spent in neutralizing or bringing the Middle East to its final shape. And look, and it will never. My opinion, it will never stabilize, because we have seen Britain and France, France controlled Africa, Algeria for more than 130 years. It was gone. It couldn't survive. Britain couldn't survive. Russia, it colonized or even occupied Central Asia. It's out. Now, I don't think United States will be able to surpass these previous powers. So it is 1 plus 0. It's not 4 plus 2.
So I think that nicely brings me to my last question. You've outlined America's agenda. You outlined some of the challenges they're having. My final question, talk about China. If there's any nation that can counter, if there's any nation that come up with an alternative plan, what is China doing in the Middle East? Does China have an alternative plan? And what should China really be doing?
Well, the interesting thing is that China does not want to do anything political. China, as long as they can sell their shoes, their shirts in Lebanon or in Jordan or in Syria, and America does not oppose that, they would say, thank you, sir. No more, no less. China does not want to play political games, especially if it's in direct challenge to the US. It's avoiding that by all means. So that's Now, China, uh, its regional interest is only in the Indochina part from the political perspective, that they will do whatever it takes to protect their interest or to pursue their objectives. But in Africa, Middle East, Latin America, China, the best thing they hope is that they continue to do the trade and make money out of these countries, which America, of course, likes, because eventually the the dollars that China will take from these areas must be produced by the Federal Reserve. So they're making their profits anyway, whether China likes it or not. So China does not want to. Now, if China was to play like a Cold War, it will not be as powerful as the old Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union, even when it was at its peak power, it played together in harmony with U.S. policies, just like it happened in the Suez Canal, like it happened when they did the non-alliance in the world. So that's what Soviet Union did in Egypt. When Sadat asked the Soviet Union to leave, and they had more than 10,000 armed forces, they left in 48 hours. So, in other words, China understands that this is not their area politically, so they will not interfere, and they prefer to stay that way. America loves to see them get involved, so it sounds as if there is a struggle with them. But China would not do that. It's not in their culture. See, I always say the Chinese, when they build their martial arts are defensive. They are not offensive like Korea or Japan or other places. They defend. When somebody wanted to invade them, they built a wall around China. So stay out. Don't come in. We are not going to fight. So this is how China plays. Now, Russia is totally different. Russia is ambitious, but under Putin or after the Soviet Union, Russia is willing to be the hitman, like use me and pay me. Use me in Syria for 13 years. Once my job is done, I will leave. Then you pay me under the table or above the table, doesn't matter. Just pay me. And US did pay Russia more than it deserved. It kept the oil prices almost $100, and Russia is probably the most beneficiary of all. With their economy, 75% depends on the oil sale. So, I mean, they have been rewarded more than enough for Syria and even for the Ukraine, for fighting Ukraine. So, the world today lacks the real competitor with the United States. The only competitors that could be are Britain and France, and maybe some other European, but Britain, France. And those ones have been beaten badly and threatened badly by the war with Ukraine, or by the NATO itself, or by all types of US dirty politics. And they are not standing up to their own visions or own even aspirations. They would love to. I mean, Britain, if it had the choice or the chance or the capability, it will immediately come and spoil the whole thing for America and take it over. But I don't think it can today.
Yeah, I suppose with France and Britain, they have the political ambition, but they lack the economic military capabilities.
Yeah. And their will is, now they just surrendered their will to say, okay, let's see if America wants us involved so we can be partners. Otherwise, they are not willing to compete or stand. And America is so rude in treating. Have you seen how Trump treated Starmer in Sharm el-Sheikh? Man, that was humiliating. If I was Starmer, I would have left immediately. The whole thing. He came to talk after the Prime Minister of Pakistan finished, and Trump just looked at him and he said something. I don't know what he said. So he went back, the man. Yeah. He went wherever he was standing like this. And this reminds me when we were in the school, in our elementary school, as a form of obedience and being consistent, the teacher would tell us, just sit, do your arm like this. That's the only form he accepted, which means we are all quiet. So this is a sign of obedience and submission. And this is the British educational system. So it's not Jordanian or Arab. That's not the style. The style of Arabs and the Muslims is to sit on your knees and to look up at your teacher, just with your eyes looking at. But this style, just do like this, is a British style. So Starmer was doing it like a kid in a school.
I'm sure
It will come out.
once people see this podcast, they'll be really keen to read the book as well. So I hope that's provided a really good insight into where we are in the Middle East and where things are going. I'm sure when the doctor's book comes out, that will give further insights into the region. And just to remind you, once again, you can find Narrative House on all the major social media platforms where you can like and share, because this helps us with the algorithm, and it also means you never miss any of our shows. If you want to contribute, you can also do so via PayPal as well. I'm Adnan, and see you next time, inshallah.
Thank you, brother. Jazakallahu khairan.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Podcasts on current events, Islamic guidance, Quran tafsir, and seerah are available at islampodcasts.com, as well as on iTunes. Rate, review, and comment, and let us know how we can grow in our knowledge to better serve our community. Please subscribe, share, and tell a friend about islampodcasts.com.